This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.
Welcome to What's News Dunedin, brought to you by Hazur Kebab, the radio show that spawned from the 22,000 plus strong local Otipō Dunedin What's News Dunedin Facebook group. The group that's been put back into social media since 2020 with respectful adult debate and a sense of humour. I'm your host, Richard Knights. On today's show, we're talking to our wonderful guest, Victor Billot, Alliance Party leader, who will be telling us a bit more about themselves and what they do, as well as helping us look back at the posts that have generated the most interactions over the past 7 days on the What's News Dunedin Facebook group. Those posts this week are the latest COVID spike, a ninth wave, with 19 deaths in the last week. Councillor Ong being ejected from a confidential council meeting earlier on in the week, and Climate Liberation Aotearoa and Extinction Rebellion Otipō protesting luxury vehicle emissions outside Armstrong prestige cars. Welcome to the show, Victor.
Thanks very much for having me.
More than welcome. Now, before we get into all that serious stuff, we are going to. I don't know if you're on my group or not. You may be.
Yes, I.
Oh, you are. That's fine. We have a pun day Monday, so we do have a pun of the week on a Monday. So basically, we get people to bring their best dad jokes, and whoever gets the most laugh reacts. It's as simple as that. Basically, gets the joke brought on the show on a Friday. So we see if it sort of goes from the page to the spoken word, and whether it's still funny. So I'll give you this week's pun of the week. So this is Councillor Steve Walker. Actually, was the glorious winner from this week. Now it's the CEO of IKEA has just been elected as the Prime Minister of Sweden. He should have his cabinet assembled by the end of the weekend.
Very good, Steve.
Exactly, he got it. He actually won by a country mile this week. So
that is an absolutely dreadful pun, as they should be. So
absolutely,
congratulations to Steve. I think
those are the best. I think the best kind of puns are the ones that make you go, oh, really? Yeah, absolutely. So. Now, again, before we get into the serious stuff of talking about the news and talking about your good self, I have 3 pop questions that I ask all my guests every time someone comes in. These are the questions that I believe get under the skin of the person that I'm talking to. Right? Forget anything else that I ask the rest of the show. These are the questions that I firmly believe are, that open up the nuts and bolts of the human being. Right?
Wow.
So, no pressure on these. First question, cream teas. Now, where you have a scone and you have jam, you have cream. What goes on first on top of the scone, the jam or the cream?
Definitely jam first for me.
Perfect. Yeah. That's the only question you can get wrong on my show, Victor. And you've passed, flying colours.
Yeah.
I strangely, and I told this lady when she was in last week, there was we had Janet Kubiak was in on the show last week,
yes.
And she's actually from Cornwall.
Ah.
Cornwall heritage, right?
Yes.
And in Cornwall, they do scone, jam, cream. Right, the way that we think is right.
Yes,
right?
the normal way.
In Devon, which is next door, they do scone, cream, jam, which is just the weirdest thing.
Okay.
But Janine, who was from Cornwall, did it the wrong way. She would never be allowed to go back to Cornwall. Like, that's it. That's the last.
She could go. She could stay in Devon. I suppose.
And maybe nip
across the border.
Across the border if she has to. Because this show's global, right? I'm on Spotify and everything, mate. So So there's people in Cornwall going like when there was a gasp when Cornwall went. When she said that last week.
Well, I didn't expect to be discussing Cornwall and Devon today, but they're very nice places. I have been there.
I spent a lot of my holidays were in both places.
Right.
Like, as a child, because I spent 30-something odd years in the UK before I came here.
Right. Yep.
So and holidays from Essex were like you either went to Wales or you went to Devon and Cornwall. Because you just kind of head west, my friend, head west.
Yes.
Because there wasn't much to go east. Otherwise,
no.
The
channel.
Exactly. So they were just sending you that way. So I had some awesome holidays there. Right. So that's the only question you get wrong, and you got it right. So that's a great start.
Good.
Second question: who is your favourite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle?
Donatello.
There's no wrong answers, mate. They're all good.
No, Donatello. There's a good reason for that.
Go on.
it's the only one that I can remember.
That's quite often my guests have got that very same reason. They just Michelangelo. Why that one? Well, I can't remember the other names of the other ones.
Oh, of course, Michelangelo,
Leonardo, Raphael, Michelangelo, Donatello, all Renaissance painters.
Well, all the funny thing is, all the other names are actually far more well known than Donatello. So I don't know why.
Absolutely, but it's what sticks, and it's what sticks in the grey matter, mate. And that's the thing. So now, third and final question, and this one's a bit of a thinker. So, would you rather adopt a British accent every time you're having a serious conversation, or laugh every time someone cries?
Oh, definitely the British accent. No problems there. My dad's actually from Jersey in the Channel Islands, so not unfamiliar with almost as nice as Cornwall. Not unused to British accents, and I think it depends on the British accent. So I think a bit of the old RP sounds a bit corny these days, but very interesting. What's the word for it? Regional accents. We've got lots of dialects up and down the country. You literally cross county borders, and it suddenly changes. Yes,
you go from Essex to Norfolk. Norfolk's talking like that. You get on my tractor, but in Essex they talk like me.
Yeah.
You know? So it's easy for me because I talk with a British accent, regardless. A serious conversation, stupid conversation, it's the same.
Well, it's the geezer accent, isn't it? The Essex.
Yes, it is a little bit, but I'm a little bit more cosmopolitan London. I like to believe. Someone would tell me, right, mate, you're totally Essex. I don't think I am.
Right.
But yeah, my dad was an East Ender, and my mum's from India, so she had a very proper British accent.
Oh, that's an interesting combo.
So I think that's what kind of where me and my brothers didn't.
Whereabouts in the East End?
My dad was from Hackney.
Oh, okay. I used to work there when I lived in London, so know the area well.
He's true Cockney, born within the sound of Bow Bells. My dad.
Yes, jellied eels and all that.
I love jellied eels. I really do. Anyway, that's the important part of the show, mate. After that,
we can relax now.
From this point onwards, yes, everyone can relax. Now I want to talk about the topics of the week. So the first topic of the week is the latest COVID spike.
Yes.
Something that's been quite obviously. Everyone remembers COVID. Everyone talks about the lockdowns. Everyone kind of sits one side or the other. Everyone either hates Jacinda Ardern, or everyone thinks she was the saviour of what we did. I mean, I know as someone that lost family and whānau and friends to COVID in the UK, and I lost more than one. I'm eternally thankful for the response that our government, whoever it was, put together in regard to that. Now, we're now apparently in the ninth wave. Like, it's kind of gone by a little bit. We kind of got COVID fatigue, which is understandable when you're trying to fighting so hard to actually to get beyond something that we'd never experienced before as a world, as an entire planet, collectively. And to be fair, again, it got out of my mind. I mean, I've had my boosters and I've had the jabs, and I've made sure that I kind of protect. I'm not worried about me so much. I'm more worried about the more vulnerable people that I might come into contact with, and that's why I do it. I've had COVID once, I think, but definitely once, might possibly be twice. But I'm always still testing. I've still got some stuff left at home, and if we have a cold in our house, we test. And my daughter's had a cold last week. I've kind of got a little bit of it, but we weren't. It's not COVID, right? So, but we test because we've still got some rats test left. But a lot of people aren't testing. But to find out, like, genuine in the news that suddenly we got 19 deaths last week, and we had another 50 hospitalisations, and in the last 28 days, 168 hospitalisations due to COVID, was a bit of an eye opener for me. And I'm wondering whether it's been an eye opener for other people as well, because actually you kind of almost, it's like in the back of your mind, And I do see on the page, like as soon as you mention COVID, or there's a certain group of people that just literally just come out, hands up, fist flying, they destroyed us. There was a post the other day about that the government had said that $60 billion had gone missing, and someone went, well, $60 billion was spent here, and the kind of the sort of like the vitriol between both sides was actually was not interesting to watch. It was kind of
It's a very incredibly divisive topic still, which is interesting. I mean, just on the COVID spike, it's I guess it's we are going to have these continuous waves going forward, and I think people need to really take it seriously, as you've said. In terms of the what goes on Facebook, I mean, there does seem to be a particular kind of I don't know, fanatical's the right word, but an extremely quite an extreme group who seem to reject scientific evidence.
Yep.
So I think that's a bit wider than COVID. I think what we're seeing is it manifests through the debate about COVID.
Yes.
But it's a wider question, what's going on in modern society and political discourse, which is it should just be a public health question, and that's it. There's
exactly. Yeah.
But it has turned into this kind of this really quite savage debate, and people still there's that, and it has had influenced the politics right till today. And it's a bit sad to see some politicians who are quite opportunistic about it, who I think recently we saw that with the inquiry results that came out, and everyone was using it to justify their own position. But I think to sum up my view of it, I mean, I support in general what the government did at the time. I think it was the right choice, and I think even at the time the National Party agreed it was the right choice.
Yes, it's interesting to see them walk that back.
I do think there's a few things that came out of it that weren't so good. But I'm not. I'm not saying that you do what you can in the circumstances, and there's always going to be errors. I think and this might be something we talk about a little bit later with the political thing. I think one error that was made, and I kind of understand why it was made, wasn't actually to do with the health response, which I think was correct. It was to do with the way that the funds were distributed to keep the economy functioning, which was obviously necessary. Unfortunately, I think the mistake was made when a lot of those funds were directed to businesses in the forms of subsidies as opposed to workers.
Yeah.
Now, that's me coming from a kind of more socialist point of view.
Yes, I'm with
but
you.
I think that has led to some problems with the inequality. Now, once again, I wouldn't have wanted nothing to happen. So I'm happy that they did something, and the health measures especially. But I think that is something that we now need to look at. Not in a way that's just, blaming anyone, but just we have to look at a way that there's been this massive surge of inequality in our society. So that's interesting how COVID, which is a public health issue, can actually have these influences in wider politics and economics.
And I think the really important thing is right, like before COVID, before even anyone understood COVID-19, right? If you were sick, you were told to stay home, right? Genuinely, if you're sick, stay home, right? Because no one wants your cold, no one wants your flu, no one wants your stomach bug, no one wants any of that when you're working, right? Because if you can't go to work, then you have to stay at home.
Obviously.
So, but suddenly that message has suddenly become very it's almost a call to arms. It's suddenly become a call to arms. Actually, no, I don't really care what sickness you have.
Yeah.
But please stay at home because I don't want it, right? I don't want to take it home to my kids. I don't want to give it to my grandma who might be there for, might end up with like bloody pleurisy or pneumonia or something. When did we stop caring about that? Is like, and again, it might come back into talk to politics about the inequalities in society, where you kind of feel like, if I don't go to work, I'm going to be in real trouble. If I don't go to work, I can't put food on the table. If I don't go to work, I can't pay my rent. I've got to go to work. I've got to go to work. I've got to go to work. That kind of mentality. Actually, you stay home and get better, then your time off work, your productivity is actually improves. I mean, science dictates. Science shows that to us, right? So I don't care. Like we're now seeing surges in measles. A disease, a disease that we would believe to have been eradicated at the same level as we've eradicated smallpox.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing, because people are kind of going, I don't trust the science.
Yeah.
The science kept you alive. Like that's the way I firmly believe it.
Yes.
And people who are old enough will go to you. Think about polio in the 50s. I'm too young to have been a part of that, in the iron lungs of the 50s and stuff. But actually, science has been keeping you. Science is the reason we don't have bubonic plague anymore. Science is the reason that scarlet fever and smallpox and those things have been are kind of pushed out as far as they are. science is what's keeping you alive from being, instead of dying in your mid-30s, which used to happen during the medieval times, maybe slightly before that, you're now living into your mid-70s, 80s, 90s, and people are celebrating 100th birthdays on a regular basis. That's science, right? That's, like, if you can't, how can you trust that but not trust the rest?
This is an interesting question, and I hear entirely what you're saying. I actually wrote an article about an opinion piece for Newsroom website about the whole COVID and the response and the kind of the strange kind of things that came out of it. But in that article, I noted, like, my grandmother died in the 1940s when my father, who's very elderly now, was just a small young boy, and that was from TB.
Yeah.
And at that point, she was in a occupied territory, obviously in the Channel Islands and so forth, but they just didn't have a few years later, they did have
the BCG jab, whatever they call it.
And they could, this is the thing. And so it does affect people, and it affects people for generations. I mean, losing a parent at such a young age is a terrible thing. And I just think a sense, I actually, I don't know how to sound harsh, but I think there's a lot of people out there who've actually been quite mollycoddled by the fact we've actually got a functioning public health system in a modern society, and they don't understand how terrible things were before we had these public health system.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that the internet, which is the wealth of all knowledge, and has provided the in reams of data and science at our fingertips, has actually made the world dumber.
Well, yeah. I mean, it certainly has been a petri dish, shall we say, a viral breeding ground for all sorts of bizarre ideas, illogical ideas, and I think it's a thing that we all have to push back on. But I think the best way to do that is just to keep on, as you've done, just repeating the importance of those basic health measures and basing it on reality, not some delusional fantasy you've created for yourself off the internet.
And I think you've got to try and do it in a way that's not confrontational necessarily.
That's right.
That's the struggle in social media, right? It becomes it becomes so confrontational that it's like I don't care if I've just said the thing that I've just realised is the actual most stupidest thing in the world, and I know it's totally wrong. I'm not going to back down because I'm on Facebook, right? I'm going to try and find a way to to kind of push through this, get out the other end, and still be a winner. Actually, sometimes that's a little bit silly. Now, talking about pushing through things, being on Facebook and not being wrong, counts are wrong.
Oh,
an interesting. See why I did that, Victor? I make this stuff as I go.
Because I'm wrong. Yeah.
Was ejected from a confidential council meeting this week. Now, that in itself isn't particularly newsworthy. But what's happened straight away is that happened. None of us would have known anything about it, bar the fact that Councillor Wrong ran straight to social media, straight to Facebook, played the victim, and then put this post up. Whether he's then sent it to ODT, which he does that a lot of anyway, I don't know. But certainly ODT picked up on that, and then it's become a news story. And they're asking Councillor Walker against Councillor Steve Walker, who was chairing the meeting, and then the truth comes out, right? Which actually is like, they've been disruptive during the meeting. They haven't followed meeting protocols. They've spoken over the chair. They've been reminded that the fact that talking over the chair is actually, that's against the rules of, public meeting or private meeting, regardless. Given the opportunity to kind of wind their neck in, but then ultimately decided that it was time to put their neck as far as they could go, and then they've walked out and gone, "Woe is me." Dunedin seems to be getting bored of it. ODT is definitely getting bored of it, which is unusual because ODT likes news, right? That's what they're there for.
Yeah.
For the clicks, for debate, for all that kind of stuff. That's what media is turned into. And even their editorial this week was kind of like, "You're making us look bad," And I don't. It seems to me, and I've said this on the show a couple of times. It seems to me there's a person that's unraveling a little bit and is kind of lost at sea with regards to the job that they're being asked to do, and I'd hate to see that unravel further and that to become some kind of other instance that becomes news that is actually not that's news that will become very sad news. But it's a real distraction right now, and it's something that's really like it's kind of winding the Dunedin public up as well, and he's achieving very little.
Well, I mean. I recall before the election, the local body elections, I noted that there were quite a few people out there who, it may have been on our, the Facebook group, who were, felt that it was, time to give this guy a go, and he had a lot of ads about business experience and finance and everything, and he looked kind of tidy and smart and everything. And my point of view then was that this guy's a completely unknown quantity. You can put anything you want in an advertisement. It doesn't have to be truthful. Or I'm not saying it was lies, but I'm just saying you can polish things up to a huge degree. Anyone can do that. And I felt it was very naive because at the end of the day, someone has to vote these roosters in. And I think people are getting a little bit of buyer's remorse now, but they should have thought about that. They should have thought when they were voting him in, well, his claims were even quite fantastic at the time. He was coming in like someone who was going to solve all your problems for you, because he was a genius. Now, I think that, to me, that's an immediate red flag. So I think the voters have to take a little bit of responsibility and say, well, why do I just vote for someone because they're a financial genius, or they claim they are? Okay, Well, that's number one. Number two, with Benedict, I've never met him. I've never come across him. I've seen what's going on. I think what you say is right. I actually think he's obviously being very disruptive and causing problems at council without any good reason. And it does seem to me that there's some kind of, I don't know what the word to put it is, but it's not a political thing. I think it's someone who is not very well in some way. And I can see it ending badly in some way. I don't know what way, but I can see it ending badly because it seems to be becoming more and more pronounced. And he's going on to social media and getting into these terrible debates with people. And not everyone on social media is sympathetic to what he's doing, and they just really sticking it to him, which is understandable because a lot of people just go, well, we don't want this person, causing problems at the DCC. It's a very sticky situation, and I'm not sure how it's going to be fixed, but he has to go. It's as simple as that, and I don't know how that will be achieved. I hope it is achieved by he resigns and finds some other area to devote his possibly very genuine intentions to, but it's certainly not working as a city councillor, and that's regardless of any political views I have on him. That's just purely there are a few. We've had a few, how do you call it, borderline cases in there over the years, but he's really taking the cake at the moment. So, I think I don't know what support is in there which you can give to people who are obviously having a open ear meltdown. It troubles me. Yep.
Yeah, it troubles me too. As much as it was entertaining for a bit, I think it's gone beyond entertainment.
Yeah, definitely. It's worrying.
I'm concerned by it, if I'm going to be honest. And as someone that is actually running in this by-election and cards on the table, that it's a pressure position already, right? To spend 3 years in Benedict's head in the next 3 years, if that's how it's going, that's going to exhaust a person. That's going to put you.
Yep.
On the edge, in my mind,
totally. I couldn't
see
see
my
for
life.
The other councillors having to deal with it,
and bad for him. Anyway, I want to move on very quickly to the final topic, which is the Climate Liberation Aotearoa and Extinction Rebellion Otipoti protesting luxury vehicle emissions outside Armstrong Prestige cars. Now, what they were trying to do, just one dealership at a time, I think, was to go out there and kind of say, hey, look, when you're buying a sort of V8, Mercedes top of the line, get off the line in half a second, and for driving around Dunedin potentially, you're not, there might be technology in there that's kind of environmentally friendly, and I'll put that in inverted commas, and there might be lots of good things that they're trying to do to as a company to reduce their own carbon footprint, but actually you're not helping the situation if you're buying something that is literally guzzling out 3 times the CO2, despite all that technology, 3 times the CO2 of a Toyota Aqua, for example. And whilst prestige motors are, prestige cars are absolutely always been a symbol of wealth with human society. Like, there's always like having the best horse and carriage and having the smartest shy horses rather than the small little pony that's taking you around. We need to be kind of thinking a little bit beyond well, that looks like a nice Land Rover, or that looks like a nice Mercedes, or that looks like a nice, and we need to be thinking beyond that. And I'll take my favourite car, and I'll go beyond. My favourite car, the vehicle that I loved as a child, was a Land Rover. Right, loved Land Rovers, loved Land Rovers, loved messing around in Land Rovers, going off road, like spending a lot of time on the green lanes in the UK, and actually just going off in the mud. Loved it. Always wanted a Land Rover. I can't buy one. I can't consciously buy one. It wouldn't matter if all the money in the world landed on me tomorrow, unless it was an EV Land Rover. Yeah. I couldn't consciously buy one anymore because I just know that the emissions coming out of the Land Rover are far higher than the emissions that are coming out of my EV that I'm running at the moment. Yeah. And despite the fact I've always loved the brand, always loved the vehicle, would always love, I'm a real estate agent. If I'm not driving a Range Rover, I should be, because they all drive Range Rovers. But you know what I'm saying? But I look at that and kind of go, I get where those protesters are coming from.
Yeah, well, I mean, I personally know several of them. So
as do I. Bruce is a friend of the show.
Bruce and some of the rest of the crew. I admire them. I think it's necessary, probably what they're doing to raise awareness. I drive a 20-year-old Toyota Wish, just to let people know where I'm coming from. And I mean, flash cars, expensive cars, luxury cars. To me, they are a little bit the sign of a fundamentally unserious person if they want to invest or spend their money on that. I mean, really, what does it say about you? And I think maybe it doesn't say what people think it does.
Yeah.
In terms of the political value of it, I don't know. I mean, I certainly would. I think, we need a multi-pronged approach to this issue, the end of the world, which is a big issue for us, caused by human-induced climate change, which the world we know it is definitely going to change beyond recognition in the next 50 years, certainly in the next 100 years. And I think that the problem we have is that the cruise ships and everything, I mean, they are a problem, but the main problem is, as far as I'm concerned, is our entire transport system is based off fossil fuels. It won't change until we have rail and coastal shipping in the mix. And that won't happen because we're running a capitalist market economy and the money is not in changing things. So it won't change until it's too late. Well, I mean, it could be too late already. I don't want to be a defeatist, but I mean, we're certainly going to get hammered by climate change. So I feel that while I admire and respect the viewpoint of the people doing those protests, I think that the big thing we have to be doing is, well, why are we not just focusing on changing our social and economic system, which is maybe a bigger point, to practical things like rail, coastal shipping, getting, electrifying our transport system, which I don't think is any less radical. But the problem is at the moment, of course, and I share this problem with the protesters, is that we're going backwards at a rate of knots on the climate issue, and the mentality out there has changed. I think it's gone backwards. I think people are less interested now than they were 10 or 20 years ago, which is, I'm not sure why that is. I think it's about part of the changing politics of our time, but it makes me very uncomfortable because we're getting, well, we're in the FAFO, we're in the FO, find out zone at the moment, and it's going to get worse.
Part of what I think, to be fair, and rightly or wrongly, and I don't know if I am right or not, is that I think that our attention span has got shorter, and because our attention span has got shorter, because we haven't seen disaster within a very small period of time, we're not focused on the fact that disaster is still coming. We've just kind of we're almost living minute to minute, because I've come from somewhere in the world where life is a lot faster than New Zealand, right? In the UK, we had a 24/7 society.
Yeah.
When I left, before I left, sort of 20 years ago, right? You could literally go anywhere, anytime, get anything, right?
Yep.
Everything was open 24/7, right? Here, I came here in 2010, and shops were still shutting on a Saturday afternoon, right? And then restaurants closed for Christmas, and they go away on holiday for 2 weeks, and I want to eat food, and all my favourite restaurants are shut. So I come from a society where that doesn't happen. Literally, if I wanted a pack of cigarettes at 3 o'clock in the morning, I could literally walk out of my house and go to numerous places.
Yeah.
I'd where do you want to go? You don't even have to go and pay expensive money for a pack. You go, and that's what I'm saying is I think that some of that is that because 30 years ago we were saying sea levels are rising because we're not underwater.
Yeah. Yep.
Because we're not underwater, people are going, well, that sea level rise thing. I'm not sure I've got the bandwidth to deal with that anymore. Yeah. But it's still rising, right? And it's still causing us problems. It's still going to cause us problems, and that disaster is still. But because I'm not knee deep in water, I'm actually my attention's gone away from it. And I don't know if that's rightly or wrongly, but that's kind of how.
I think that's that's part of it. I think it happens over a period of time, and we're very in the moment, very fast-moving society now where people don't have the ability to kind of look at things in the long term. But I think it also goes back to what you were talking about before, about the effect of, with COVID and everything, there's that rejection of scientific evidence. And it's another area where it pops up. And people are extremely confident that scientific evidence is wrong and they are right, and based on their feelings, I don't know, they're something they saw on YouTube.
I think YouTube's got a lot to blame. I think YouTube needs to pick up some serious responsibility and accountability because the ability to go on YouTube and just say anything.
Well, the trouble is, I think this is what I've noticed is, and this has happened with people I know, is there is a belief pattern in a lot of people, not most people, but a lot of people, that something on a screen which looks someone talking at you with a little background on it or something, it's true.
Yeah, because it has credibility.
Yeah,
for no other reason.
Probably because it goes back to the days of when on TVNZ you had one news channel and the guy he might have been putting a spin in it, but the facts were probably reasonably
there.
Yeah. But now, of course,
people say what they want.
Yeah,
it's like the flat earthers and they've all found their YouTube rabbit hole that they can get down.
Yeah,
and they can meet each other and then they can tell each other that they're correct and everyone else and tells their mate that they're correct and everyone kind of goes, "Just fantastic." Yeah, why has no one ever fallen off the edge of the planet? Well, that's not how it works.
You end up in New Zealand.
It's a different kind of flat earth to that, Yeah. But anyway, it's like it is crazy. Anyway, I want to talk about you, but before we do, I'm just going to get a quick word from our wonderful sponsor.
Have you checked out Hazur Kebab yet? It's your go-to for a delicious lunch, a tasty dinner, or anything in between. Order online to save time and pick up some delicious, authentic Turkish cuisine in just minutes. HazurKebabCafe.co.nz. Dine in or take away at 906 George Street.
Do you like a kebab, Victor?
Oh, I love a kebab.
I've never met a person that doesn't. To be fair, I've asked that question 137 times.
And I have to say, your sponsors do good kebabs.
So they do. They really do. Yeah, they do. I don't think I could have a sponsor that didn't do good. If it's a food sponsor, I don't think I could kind of sit here every week and kind of go in. Yeah, they are. It's just fantastic food. I want to talk about you now. When I introduced you at the beginning of the show, was introduced you as the Alliance Party leader. All right, now. From what little I know about New Zealand politics, and I've only been here 15 years, right? This kind of predates me. So I genuinely don't have much to hang my hat on with regards to knowing much about what you're about. So, give us the kind of 3-minute Cliff Notes version. Who is Victor Billot? How did you get to where you are? Why are you now the Alliance Party leader? And what does that mean?
Well, 3 minutes. Okay, here we go. Well, just about me, I was recently elected as the Alliance Party leader. I work I work for the Maritime Union as a union official. I have been a member of the Alliance since before it was the Alliance. It was called the New Labour Party, not to be mistaken with the New Labour Party in Britain. It was a New Zealand political party. So that started in 1989, the New Labour Party, and the Alliance started in 1992. I've been with it the whole time. It's had its high points and it's had its low points, it's fair to say. Probably people who are I'm in my 50s, and probably people my age and older would understand what the Alliance was. Just to give you a very quick summation, it was formed as a collection of different political parties in the early 1990s as a way of basically getting around the first past the post electoral system, which we had then.
Yep.
So this was pre-MMP, the system we have now. So it was very hard for third parties to get into Parliament. National Labour had a stranglehold on it. Now, what had happened in the 80s and 90s is National Labour had radically changed their policies. The National Party had become right-wing. It always was right-wing, but it had become extremely free market capitalist. Strangely enough, so had the Labour Party.
Right.
So there was actually a split in the Labour Party, and led by an MP called Jim Anderton, who stayed in Parliament, and then he formed an alliance with the Green Party, which was going at that point, and some other smaller parties, one of whom was a kind of precursor to the Maori Party, or Te Pāti Maori. So that over the course of the 90s, the alliance was basically a left-wing, I would say, centre to left-wing opposition to the right-wing politics of the time. And it was very popular. It had a number of MPs and eventually became part of the coalition government with Labour after the 1999 election. So Labour Alliance Coalition after fighting for a long time. That was good in that we got rid of the national government, and it was bad because the Alliance Party was the junior partner in that coalition, and it destroyed, going to that coalition, blew us up. And the divide was around how far should we go in supporting the Labour Party and how far should we stick to our own more left-wing policies. And the thing which really blew it up was, ironically, the Afghan war in Afghanistan, where we opposed the Labour Party's concept of getting involved in that, for good or for ill, and that basically broke up the party. We left Parliament, and we've been out of Parliament ever since, a long time.
Yeah.
But we didn't disappear. We kept going, and what's happened in the last year or two is a new generation's kind of appeared over the horizon and have basically pretty much come to me because I was the last, maybe well, not the only one, but I was one of the last kind of alliance identified people around and said, let's get this thing going again. We need a left-wing party in New Zealand, a genuine social democratic socialist, whatever word you like, left-wing alternative, and which doesn't apologise for it and doesn't try to please everyone and is, really gunning for our market. And here we find ourselves today, and I've put my hand up and said, yes, I will take it forward for this election campaign as a leader.
Right. Okay. So what does that mean for you as an individual? Does that mean you now stand as to be elected in Dunedin or somewhere else, or?
Yes. Well, first of all, it means a lot of work, and I do have moments where I wonder, what on earth have I done?
Yeah.
But in terms of the process, I will be standing as a candidate. It hasn't been announced yet. I'll be standing as a candidate in one of the Dunedin electorates.
Right.
And we are working towards registering as a party. To register as a party, you have to have over 500 financial members, and we've only really been in a expansion phase for the last year, and a lot of that has just been setting up the basics, because we were in cold storage basically, and as a result, it has been better than I expected actually. So as a result, we have kind of scaled up our growth, I guess, and we are now looking at registering as a party, which means we can run a list,
right?
Party list, so that's for your party vote.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And what is your hope for 2026? Because obviously, with like genuinely, like, with all the best will in the world, and the fact that you've come out of cold storage, what are you hoping to achieve? Because I've spoken to a few people who have mentioned your name and the Alliance Party and stuff like that, and again, because I've been here 15 years, and you predate me, and I mean that in a nice way, in the sense of the party, not that you're older than me, in the sense that what's available to you in 2026? Because the last thing you probably want is to go, and then 2027 is back to cold storage.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I believe I have a optimistic but fundamentally realistic view of where we're at. It's entirely possible that virtually no one votes for us in the election. That is a possible outcome, in which case maybe it's time to give up on the vision. But I want to give it a go, and other people involved in the Alliance want to give it a go to see. And the response we've got has been moderately positive as far as I'm concerned. I think that membership is growing, people are interested. Some people say, what's the point? But I mean, I think those people don't kind of support our ideas anyway. So it's So I would feel that the purpose of the Alliance is always to get elected and have an influence on government. That is why we're doing it this way. But if that were not to happen, there are other benefits. Like, for example, we could grow towards standing a wide range of candidates around the country in the next local body elections, which I think is a good way in for a smaller party. And the other thing is just opening the window up on the questions, because at the moment you've got this very furious debate that's going on in this quite small space. And a lot of ideas that I think we need just aren't getting discussed, So the Alliance is obviously to the left of the existing parties, and some people go, well, what does that mean? I just think it means...
I was going to ask that very same question.
Yeah. Well, it's a good question, because, I mean, you talk these things, what do they mean? You want to get away from this insider language where, left or right or whatever. I mean, I think the policies we are promoting are more solid and are quite different from what, say, for example, the Labour Party is offering. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, the National and Labour have different policies. Well, I'd say the Alliance policies are just as far from the Labour Party on the other side than the National Party policies. For example, I would say the big 3 or 4 things, and I won't get into the details, but the big 3 and 4 things that we're looking at, there has to be a complete reform of the taxation system for funding the government. And that has to be basically getting money off capital, wealthy people and wealthy institutions. Because unless we do that, we're simply not going to have the money for the kind of services and infrastructure we need. So obviously that's a message that's controversial, but I think that debate needs to be had, and we're not having it at the moment. And as part of that, that's where the money's coming from, obviously, but we're also looking at expanding the public sphere of ownership for assets in New Zealand. So not talking about not privatising, we want to put things back in public ownership.
Oh, please. Like, I saw the privatisation when it happened in the UK.
Oh,
right? It's one of the, when they privatised water and they privatised gas and they privatised, and they privatised rail, and they literally, you got Virgin trains going, and it was like, and
it's been a disaster.
It has, and then people look at that and go, "Ooh, let's do that." And you're kind of going no.
Well, it's been a disaster for the consumers and the services, but it's actually been highly successful for the ownership class.
Yeah,
and we're talking about a very small group of people here who really benefit from it in a big way. And so in New Zealand, I guess a big example is, I tie this into infrastructure. The Alliance we had a thing in New Zealand once called the Ministry of Works, which basically did stuff. It built infrastructure. Now, it wasn't always popular because some of the projects it did kind of were probably a little bit backward environmentally and so forth. But you can't argue that it got stuff done. Now, what we've got at the moment, you look at Wellington with the wastewater treatment, absolute disaster. French multinational got in there, Christ knows what they've been doing, paid a lot of money, a bunch of local managers who just and kind of patsies who just get paid money to go, it's all good, blows up, massive pollution, we don't know what's happening, and the guy in charge of it, who was the ex-mayor of Pororua, who was just doing it was just a cynic, he's just, he resigned.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, taking responsibility, I resign. It's someone else's problem.
My bad.
So, I guess my point there in a roundabout way is that we want to see, and we call it Kiwi Works. We think it's a nice little riff on the Kiwi Bank kind of thing. Kiwi Works, a Ministry of Works that the public of New Zealand build and create and pay for the public of New Zealand for their own assets, their own infrastructure. And we have a massive infrastructure deficit in the country.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy to come back at some time and get into the weeds on infrastructure. It's a little bit of an obsession of mine, but I think it's about getting practical stuff done for people, but we also want to do it in a way that provides an opportunity for the working people of New Zealand, the majority of the population, to actually have a say and a stake in the future of their country rather than just being renters, which is what we're turning into.
Yeah.
So there's my spiel.
No, it's fair enough, and there's a whole lot of questions that are jumping around in my head that I want to ask. And while I collect those thoughts, I'm just going to run another ad for our wonderful sponsor.
You.
Have you checked out Hazur Kebab yet? It's your go-to for a delicious lunch, a tasty dinner, or anything in between. Order online to save time and pick up some delicious, authentic Turkish cuisine in just minutes. HazurKebabCafe.co.nz. Dine in or take away at 906 George Street.
As you know, I spend a lot of time on Facebook, right? Probably more time than most human beings ever should. But one of the things I notice quite categorically is this right-left dichotomy, this like if you're on the right, you can't like the left. If you're on the left, you can't like the right, right? And like, it's as soon as you say anything that's kind of left of centre, it's the radical left, and it's like, and if you say anything that's right of centre, it's like it's the Nazi right, right? Yeah. So those are the two things, and a lot of people don't even understand it. Like they're throwing this out. You got someone who's clearly got right wing opinions going, I'm not right wing, and you kind of going like, but you're having a go at the leftists. Now, the things you just said, and this is what I'm trying to get back to, the things you've just said make sense to me as a human being, right? Yes. Forget my leanings, but I'm probably more left of centre than I ever have been. I started life on the right, I guess. I genuinely did, when it was much more about me than it was about we, and that's kind of how I feel the two sides differentiate. What you just said makes sense. What you just said about tax makes sense. What you just said about infrastructure and having come from a country that privatised the life out of everything and totally ruined it for everyone apart from the ownership class. We've got a whole middle class, lower class, whatever group of people in this country that I hear Ministry of Works all the time. I see those words, Ministry of Works, so I don't know what it means. Ministry of Works all the time. I see people talk about tax people. Why haven't you got like groundswell support, right? Because like you're talking about stuff that it just doesn't mentally make sense to me. Yeah, and I see people talking about it, and I just know for a fact that if you went to any one of those people that are talking about it and went vote Alliance, they'd go no.
Yeah.
And that bit is the bit that I kind of go, do you explain that to me? Because they can't. They probably couldn't.
I think it's a couple of things. I think the first thing is that for older people, probably they remember the Alliance as something that in their view failed. It kind of like it blew up and it left Parliament. And the Labour Party survived. And in my view, that is the great tragedy of New Zealand modern politics, because the Alliance actually represented the politics that the Labour Party should represent, in my view. So in the sense, I see myself, the idea of the Labour Party, Labour politics, I agree with the original motives and goals and principles of the Labour Party, definitely. But from 1984 on, the Labour Party doesn't. And I think what's happened is we've got to a situation in New Zealand society where, say, for example, the support for the Alliance is very low. Well, part of that is because it's very hard to get cut through in the media And that's why community stations and people like yourself are very important to us, because they give us a little bit of a platform to discuss our ideas. But I think it's wider than that. I think that the level of political literacy in New Zealand is now so low. It is so low that people, and I'm not saying this in a patronising way, a lot of people have a lot of opinions, and you ask them to explain those opinions, they'd be contradictory, they wouldn't make sense. And as you say, I'm sure that probably at least 30% of the people in New Zealand would broadly support alliance policies at the moment. Will that 30% vote for us? Probably not. So the question is, we'd like them to, obviously.
Yeah.
The question is why is that? Well, I think part of it is that New Zealanders now see elections as a horse race, and you want to support someone who's going to win. I think a lot of people genuinely do that. They don't vote on the basis of principles, what they want, and everyone's become an expert on election voting strategy. Everyone is an expert. You're going to split the vote. I mean, I'll say it because that's the question I always get asked. And I just go, well, that's a potential threat. But at the moment, I guess we could say that the Labour Party is splitting our vote, or the Green Party is splitting our vote. No one owns a vote. You have to fight for it. You have to argue for it. You have to build credibility. We're in the building credibility phase. But I will say, you just compare, for example, the kind of, and they're doing better at the moment because they're running a good campaign. The top, the Opportunities Party, massive media coverage for a party that's outside Parliament. And the reason they're getting a lot of that is, in my view, they're controlled opposition. They are giving the message of being in opposition, but they're basically going to be moderating influence on National and Labour, whatever that means. And they're basically saying we can run the capitalist system in a better way than the existing people. Now, I'm not, they're not the world's worst people. I'm sure they're quite genuine about what they're doing. But they've got money, they're getting money from corporate sources, blah, 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 and they are getting the payback from all that. And we're struggling a bit. And I would put it out there, it's a bit of a challenge. I would say I hear it just as you have, an enormous number of people out there going, we need something different. Well, why don't we have more left-wing policies? Why don't we, and that terrible word, but why don't we have policies that look after people, look after the people, not just the few at the top? Well, if you want them, you have to support someone who's offering that. And the Alliance is offering that. And if you're going around saying that's what you want, but you're not going to vote for us or not support us or join us, I put the question to you, well, what are you talking about? You might as well quit your Facebook comments, you might as well quit your opinions that you're sharing with everyone, because you're not doing anything about it, or you're supporting people who won't deliver those things on the basis that they're more popular than us at the moment. So a little bit of a rant. I do get a little bit grumpy about it. Give me a.
But you're right. You've got to walk your talk, haven't you?
Well, exactly.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, my politics are my politics, and I've gone from being someone that back in the UK would have voted for the Conservatives to someone that would be over here and vote for the Greens, right? Yep. And I think some of my biggest problem with politics in the modern times, and I'm talking in the last 15 to 20 years, is the credibility of candidates, and that's where I really struggle, because I look around. I know all the local MPs, right? I know all the local people. I've met them. It's something that probably couldn't happen in the UK. We couldn't be friends, or we couldn't be acquaintances, right? And a few of them, I think, are wonderful human beings. But I look to the other people around the country and stuff, not so much people that I don't know, but just because I don't know them, they're further away. And I look at that politician and go, wouldn't trust you as far as I can throw you. Don't believe a word that comes out your mouth. What are you talking about? Like genuinely, and I see more of those people than I see of people that I can actually say, they look like they're in the politics for the right reasons and doing it for the people rather than doing it for themselves. And that's where I really struggle, because I'm not just talking about national here. I'm not talking about Winston first. I'm not talking about, that's what I call that, because it's all about Winston. I'm not talking about, there's no way I could ever talk about ACT. There's not a single ACT MP that I'd look at and go, yeah, I'd believe everything you say. Like, just simple as that. I'm talking about Labour as well. I'm talking about some of the shenanigans that have happened with the Greens. I'm talking about some of the shenanigans that have happened with Te Pati Māori. I'm looking at all of those people and looking at all of you collectively and kind of going, not sure I believe you.
Yeah, well, I think that speaks to it too, and that the legitimacy and the credibility of the whole political system is under intense scrutiny, and I think that's good. But the trouble is that's also resulting in alienation, where people just give up on it. They're all scumbags. Why should we have anything to do with it? And I get it, because you see a lot of scumbag behaviour. I mean, it's if you look at, I have to say we're actually pretty lucky here in Dunedin. I'd say all the MPs we have in this area, and I can think of 5 of them, 2 Labour, 2 Greens, 1 New Zealand First. Look, they're all people they're reasonable people. They're reasonable people, yeah. And I have, and I think they're all doing their best by their own lights. And some of them I don't politically agree with that much, but I think I think they're sincere people. But if you look around the country, and you look around at some of the people in the current government, what can I say? I mean,
that might be the last thing you have to say, because we've run out of time. What a good point. What a good place to finish it. It means you have to come back at some other point and finish
it's
your
right.
sentence.
That hour went very quickly, you said it would.
I told you it would. Well, thank you for joining us. Just sit there while I round the show out, and Victor, you're welcome back anytime you like. Well, that's a wrap for this week. Thank you for tuning in. I've been Richard Knights, and you've all been wonderful. Remember, if you're looking for a robust, respectful adult debate about all things local and further afield, and a welcoming online community doesn't take itself too seriously, come and find What's News Dunedin on Facebook and join our fun. On next week's show, we'll be talking to Dr. Ian Chapman, musician, writer, public speaker, and former head of the Performing Arts degree programme at the University of Otago. And we look forward to seeing you next Friday at 12 on ORFM. And if you want to listen to the show again, or simply share it with your friends, you can find the podcast at oar.org.nz, or even on Spotify, YouTube, or your favourite podcast provider.
This podcast was produced by ORFM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.